Hey guys, it's me Astrid. Today I am going to talk about red flags of abusive people. Now, this is your trigger warning. If anything regarding sexual assault, abuse, domestic violence, anything like that is triggering to you, please go now because I am not going to sugarcoat anything. Okay? So please go now. You've been warned. Otherwise, stick around if you're curious. If you want to know more, please listen. And yeah, I was in an abusive situation about 5 years ago, and I was around this person for less than a year, and they did this much damage. I still am afraid to walk alone at night. I'm still afraid of seeing them. I'm still afraid of being by myself too long, and I wasn't even as severely abused as some of the girls that this person was with. And I really wish I could name him and show his photo, but I think that I would get a lawsuit against me for slander because he didn't go to jail and it wasn't proven that he did anything. So anyway, this I'm going to be reading off of a script I've written, so if I look like I'm reading, it's because I am. Bear with me on that. This may seem like a how-to guide for abusers, but if they're this type of person, they already know how to manipulate people. This is a how-to guide for us, the victims and potential victims, so we can see warning signs of abuse and fucking go, and hopefully go before we're in a really abusive situation, okay? I have other red flags that I might have missed listed in the video description, links to resources, links to hotlines. I can't give hotlines for every country, but they're in so many countries. I'm sure you can find help. If you or anyone you know is suffering in an abusive situation, please get help and make that ugly situation end. An abuser can be a man, woman, beautiful, ugly, rich, poor, strong, or weak. And a victim can be all of those things too. Do not assume that because my situation was an able-bodied, straight male committing violence against a straight-bodied or able-bodied straight female that I'm saying all abuse is this way, because it is not. Alright, so here's first red flag. Getting you to compromise your morals. These people see how malleable you are and how much they can manipulate you before they start on the slow path to an abusive relationship. As an example, he took me to go eat burgers while I was vegetarian because I liked meat, but it was against what I believed in at the time. And he watched me eat meat while we hung out. He bent my morals. I bent my morals in front of him, and it showed him a weakness he could manipulate. This person I'm talking about, I am assuming is a sociopath, but not all abusers are. But I'm pretty sure this guy was definitely a sociopath. You can read more about that, but I'm just going to let you know that's where I'm coming from. He enjoyed sleeping with girls who were inexperienced or virgins or hesitant to sleep with him because he loved to dirty something that was pure. Anything he could do to manipulate your morals, that's what he did. Other things that people like this may do is getting you to lie to people, getting you to do something against what your parents want, and so on. That's a red flag. Next red flag, getting favors from you. This is kind of a grooming technique. You know, everyone wants to feel useful, right? Well, when I was 18 and alone after high school and had low self-esteem, I was ripe for the harvest of an abuser like this. He would ask me to give him a ride to get cigarettes in the middle of the night. I took him off to drop off his ballot one year. I helped him with job applications, and he was on probation and unemployment and had bad handwriting, so he would have me write for him, which was stupid because it was really easy for me to write out all the legal work against him. Didn't go through, but it helped. I thought, wow, someone wants to spend time with me, and I felt flattered. I had company for a little while when I did these favors for him. I was less alone. How nice. Feeling useful is so important to people, and abusers know that. By giving this attention, he was letting me feel like I did him favors and helped him out, and he was building me up so he could tear me down again. It started out fine, but things got worse as time went by. Let's see. Feigning interest in things that you care about is a red flag. He got me to go to a concert with him of a band I really loved, and I thought he loved them too, but he was just using it to fuck me. I only found out about this after shit hit the fan, after my partner at the time found out because it was his best friend, all this kind of thing. I only found out after that he didn't even like this band. He was just using that to get that. I would read old messages from him, and he'd ask me about my day and myself and my feelings, but he would never actually respond to anything I said about those things or show any real interest in them. So watch out for people like this. Be sure someone's interest in you is backed up by engaging questions, actual incitement, and not just empty conversational fluff. When I asked his advice on my life, normal stuff you'd ask an intimate partner, he would skirt the questions, change the subject, or flat out say, "I'm not answering that." Red flag. Another red flag is being charming. The best thing I heard about charming people was this: remember, when someone is charming, you are being charmed. If you are aware of what they're doing, you can look at their actions with more scrutiny and less trust. It's nice to feel charmed sometimes, but if you're naive and you allow the charm to hinder your judgment and critical eye, the abuser's game is working and you're at risk of being drawn in. At least you're at risk of accepting his abusive actions against other people, because as a friend of an abusive person, you can accept their behavior too, even though they don't directly abuse you. Recently, Jian Ghomeshi, host of Q in the CBC, I'm American, but he plays on NPR, has been accused of horrible actions against women, but he's wildly popular as a radio show host. He's like a radio god. He had charm enough to be at the top and be a successful personality in the media. Abusers can be very popular. Abusers, like Jian Ghomeshi and my abuser, will frame their past deeds in a positive light. Abusive people can choose people who are naive like I was. We will try to look past the bad in people and find the good. It's a nice quality to have, but an abuser can take advantage of it if someone doesn't also have a good level of skepticism and experience. This whole video and me thinking about all this stuff was inspired by the fact that Jian Ghomeshi of Q just came out as being kinky in light of being accused of sexual assault and abuse. I immediately called bullshit on this because I recognize this behavior. Jian was jumping on a bad story about him before anyone could ever hear it from anyone but him. And if you hear it from the nice guy that you like, who's your favorite radio host first, people are going to react to it the way he wants to hear it rather than his victims. He framed his abuse in harmless kinks and his past he framed his abuse as harmless kinks and his past partners as vengeful conspirators out to get him. And my abuser did the same thing. He told me on that cheeseburger date that he'd beaten his ex-girlfriend and gone to prison for 2 days because of it. And he said he'd been really drunk and felt so sorry for it, and luckily his friends spoke up on his behalf because he was actually not that bad of a person. Of course, what actually happened was that he had flown into a rage at a party, beat the shit out of her so there was blood on the cabinets, and he bit her on the face and told her not to tell anyone. And this was at a party, in front of people. People who he had so under his spell that they stood up for him out of guilt and that their friend was going to face jail time for real. It was the same thing with any bad story about his past actions. His ex-girlfriend would always call him when I was there at night, freaking out and crying that he wasn't with her. Well, this turned out to be his actual girlfriend, and he just told me it was his ex and that she was being crazy. He would have me be quiet, reassure her, and hang up and explain to me that, yeah, she's crazy and clingy and just can't get over me. Of course, what was actually going on, unbeknownst to most of us involved, was that he was actually fucking 6 girls at once, and that girl who was dating him had every right to be angry and acting like she did. Jian Ghomeshi and the male who abused me both take their bad behavior and cast it in a light that makes them look not so bad. We think, wow, how honest and brave of them to confess to something difficult like that, when in actuality they are pieces of shit we secretly suspect them of being, but we just can't admit that it's not okay to stop looking for the good in someone when there isn't. Another red flag is straight up saying, "I'm a bad person." Sounds kind of crazy, right? Who would say that, and who would then hear someone say that and be like, "Oh, okay, I'll still be friends with you"? Well, the person who abused me did that. And he did it to more girls than one, as I found out later. One night, he looked me in the eye, and in a very husky voice, he said, "I'm a bad, bad man," as he stroked my cheek. This is a tool to make the victim think, oh no, this person thinks that they're a bad person, but I will continue to see the good in them. I know they've had a shady past, but everyone makes mistakes, and I will care about him and show him he's wrong. I'm not a judgmental person after all. The lesson I learned is be fucking judgmental. If someone says they're a bad person, they probably are. That or something is messed up enough with them that they think that they are. Either way, if someone says that they are a bad person to your face, just sit, look them in the eye and say, "Oh, thanks for the warning. I'm going to go and you can erase my phone number. Goodbye." Leave, never talk to them again. This is a red flag that seems so obvious, but it's just another tool to lure you into the trap. Another red flag that I harped on in another video is ever once laying hands on you. Remember that even one time laying hands on you is too much. If someone ever does this, slaps you, grabs you, pushes you, anything, ever, it is not worth the risk of staying with them to give them a second chance. Leave. There are better people who will love you more than this piece of shit ever will. I promise. Another thing abusers do that's a red flag is pushing your boundaries way too far and then reeling it back in to be only just a little too far. The person who abused me did this. They would test my limits by doing something horrible. Let's say they took 5 or 6 steps out of my comfort zone. Then they'd apologize and go only about 2 or 3 steps back. They would push and push like this, then come to something more acceptable, but still not okay. But you would get accustomed to having your limits violated and accept those worse things more easily than you normally would. And he did this to me a lot of times, and when I look back, I realized that he did it. Once he started slapping me sharply in the face and jokingly said, oh, he and his ex used to slap each other like that for fun. He did it, and I was uncomfortable, but the fact that I didn't lash out at him was a sign that I was under his control. And people like this value control. That's why rape and sexual abuse and domestic violence are not about violence necessarily. They're about controlling another human being. And I didn't understand that until I was sexually assaulted myself. But it's not about sex. It is about taking power away from someone, and that is what is happening with these abusive situations. I am not ready to talk about the very sexually degrading things he did to me in a public forum, and I may never be, but he did some very extremely degrading and offensive things to me, and after a long time I was at a point where I would just accept it and cover up my anger. It seems crazy that that can happen, but it does, and I heard that he did worse to other sexual partners and victims of his. Sorry. Another red flag is isolating you and getting you to lie to your friends. He told me I'd have to keep quiet about what we did, meeting at night, fucking, hanging out. He didn't want too many people to know. He didn't want his friends to know. His ex, aka the girl he was actually fucking dating at the time, couldn't know, and I was her friend. That's how fucked up the situation is, okay? I don't justify my actions here, but I say he was in my group of friends at the time, and he made sure that I had to be lying to each and every one of them about what I was doing. And if I breathed the word about it to anyone or anything came close to coming out, he would get really fucking angry. People like this will also do acts to demonstrate their power, so you might feel afraid of them. So this is serious, but one of the more hilarious moments of these behaviors, which was when he grabbed his like bench press bar with a bunch of weight added to it and did like 30 bicep curls in front of me, staring at me and looking dangerous. Like, most of this is all really horrible memories and bad things, but when I think about that, I can't help but be kind of amused, because what kind of pathetic fucking loser has to flex his guns right in front of you to demonstrate his strength and intimidate you? That little act of strutting and dominance remains hilarious to this day, and I hope he's watching so you can hear how fucking stupid you looked, you piece of shit. Other examples of this were him getting into screaming matches with his mother and family members around me. It would make me feel intimidated, but it wasn't directly at me, but it was enough so I would know that he would not fuck around and he would do the same thing to me if I crossed him. Less funny examples were times he grabbed me really hard so I could feel I was too weak to get away from him. No matter what, though, he demonstrated he was more powerful and more strong with me, and this let me know that if I was physically put against him, I would lose, so I might as well not even try. And that's how coercive rape works. You don't get beaten because you're already afraid of being beaten and hurt. So you feel even more guilty because they didn't leave any marks on you. That's how that works. These people will disrespect your sexual and other boundaries and wishes and get you to accept it. Seems stupid, right? But you should always make someone wear a condom, and anyone telling you that they can't is so full of shit I can't even start. But this guy, being a manipulator, manipulated me and many of the girls he was fucking into not wearing a condom. So not only was I at risk of abuse and being sexually assaulted with this guy, I was at risk of serious STDs, and lucky for me, I did not get anything from him, but just imagine what could have happened. Not only would I have to live with the fear and sadness that he put in me, but I would also have to live with some disease that he gave me, which would be even worse, I think. Don't ever, 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 ever let someone fuck you without protection. Just don't. And don't let them get you to accept it. I know it's a silly statement if you're already in an abusive situation, but that's my deep wish, is that people won't accept that. People like this will humiliate you in front of other people in a way where you can't say anything back to them. This guy would make comments about my genitals in front of his best friend, who I was really interested in and really cared about, and I was with for 5 years. He would make comments that would humiliate me. But if I reacted to them, this person that I really liked would know something had happened between me and his best friend, and then how could I be with him ever? How? My abuser did a lot of this sort of thing, and it hurt me, shamed me, and made me feel guilty and alone in my humiliation and frustration. So if people humiliate you intentionally, that's abuse. Another red flag are people like this twisting a valid emotion you have toward them into shaming you and making you apologize for it. You may come at them with the most valid anger and horrible emotions toward them that you can imagine. They may have done the worst thing ever to you, but it doesn't matter, because a manipulator like this will already have you in a position where you're afraid of challenging them. So when you do, they will flip the argument back on you. How dare you accuse me? I can't believe you'd say that. What are you trying to say about me? Guilting statements to make you ashamed of even questioning them. One of his exes said, and this is very true, one of this guy's exes said that he's the only person in the world who can do the worst thing ever to you, and by the end of the conversation have you apologizing to him for it. And that's exactly what happened to me when I accused him of coercing me into sex, when what I was trying to say was that he raped me. I was so angry with him. I wrote him a long and angry message, and I don't really remember what prompted me to write him this message, but I did. And I said a bunch of stuff, including that all he cared about was getting his dick wet, and he didn't care who he hurt. He called me stern, firm, and intimidating. He said, "You're making it sound like I raped you." Well, that didn't happen. And da-da-da-da-da. And he just listed off reasons why. And in retrospect, I can tell that this was him in flailing desperation to cover his ass, because finally one of the many girls he abused was inches away from calling his actions on what they were: rape and abuse. I know now that he was afraid then. He was fucking terrified. But he channeled it into anger and he tore me apart in that phone call. He left me crying and he left me saying, no, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it, and I'm sorry I was mad at you. I'm sorry. However, if you are at this red flag, you're already being abused. You're already through all the other things I warned you about, probably. And it doesn't mean you can't get out at this point. Please call a hotline. 1-800-799-7233 is the National Domestic Violence Hotline in the US. You can Google search other hotlines and I will include more below. You can call your friends and your family. You can call 911 after someone hurts you, and you can choose to leave this person. You don't have to stay in the cycle of abuse, and I know other women, men, people out there are in worse situations than me, far worse than I ever was in, and I'm very lucky that it wasn't as bad as it is for some people, or as long. But I'm telling you that you can break the cycle. You have to pull on, rather than the darkness that the abuser puts you in, rather than the loneliness and isolation, all these things that they push you into, fear, intimidation, isolation, loneliness. Go for the opposite. Companionship, friendship, happiness, joy, and love. You get those from your friends, you get those from your family, and you get those from people who truly care about you. People may be frustrated with you if you keep going back to an abuser, but if you pull on the people that love you, they shouldn't let you down. At least there's hotlines, there's women's support hotlines, and even if the people who love you don't understand, these people do. I called RAINN, it's the Rape and Incest National Network. You can call their number, I'll include it below, but you can always call someone. Even if it means you have to do it outside of your house, at the library, whatever, please. I implore you to pull on the strength of the people who love you and the resources you have to help you get out of the bad situation. You need to document every bruise, scratch, fight, and incident secretly while you plan leaving. Document it all and hide it somewhere. I don't know what you have to do, but now we have things like Google Drive. You can back it up online and they'll never find it, hopefully. Document it. Write a date and take a picture of any marks with your phone if you can. If you are raped, go to the hospital as soon as possible, and I know that's the last thing most of us would ever want to do after that humiliating, frightening, terrifying, dehumanizing situation, but if you get that evidence, it will help the police prosecute this fucker and put them in jail. It didn't happen with me because I waited 3 months after it happened to report it, and now he walks free. If you clearly document evidence of all the things the abuser does, it will, however, make a much stronger case against them. If you go to the hospital after sexual assault, they have that evidence. In my case, of course, I had none of this, and none of the other girls he manipulated did either. He manipulated us all very well. So well, in fact, that one of the girls who he had beaten so badly that she left the state for a while, the girlfriend, said to the cop interviewing us about him that he's just a good kid. He makes mistakes sometimes. The man who hurt me walks free today. I wish horrible things on him. I saw him once at the mall 4 years later, and I almost threw up and started crying. Though your abuser tries to isolate and control you, you are not alone. You are not the only one suffering. There are organizations and family members to help you. Please listen to the red flags before you are really hurt. And if you've missed them, don't feel bad about yourself, because I did and many other people do. Just please make the choice to try to get out of that situation. I love you all. I send you all of my support, and I'm sorry if any of you are going through pain. Please share this with friends, family, and anyone who you're worried about. Let them see, let them hear, and be sure to always trust your gut about people. Always trust the red flags, and never let someone manipulate you into going against what you believe is right, okay? I love you, and thank you for watching this. Thank you for allowing me to come out as someone who has survived some abuse, and thank you for sharing with me, guys. You're wonderful. Thank you very much.